All right, well, it looks like we are live, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. We see the numbers starting to pour in, so a massive hello to everyone. Real quick before we get started, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Chris Martinez, and I'm the mayor of Gadventures, but more importantly for today's conversation, I'm a champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'd love to welcome everyone to today's conversation where we're expecting around 500 people from around the world today. So we want to send a massive hello to our friends from Canada, the United Kingdom, and the US. And we also did mention that this is worldwide. So we want to extend an even further hello to some of our friends that are joining from as far away as Norway, Malaysia, and Belize. We want to thank you all for taking your time and joining us today. We sincerely hope that you and your families are safe and well at this time. And we appreciate you taking the time to join us today for the latest in our series of Retravel Live virtual events, addressing how we can reshape travel on the other side of this pandemic. Today, ahead of International Women's Day next week, we're focusing on women in travel and the power tourism has to help change the lives and empower the women in our travel community. Before we get started, I'd like to share just a few housekeeping items to ensure that we have the best possible viewing experience. So you're aware, we've collected all of your questions in advance, and we're going to do our best to attempt to answer as many of them throughout the content of this presentation and conversation today. We also encourage everyone for the best viewing experience to select fit to screen at the top of your window, just to make sure we capture the whole conversation visually. And finally, so you're aware, we're also going to be recording this conversation. So if there's any gems or things that you want to refer back to, we will make this available shortly via our YouTube account. Before the conversation starts, it's only fitting that we break into some introductions. So if you'll allow me just a moment to do that. First, I'd like to introduce our host and moderator today, Bruce Poon-Tip. Bruce is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and pioneer of community tourism, and is the founder of Gadventures and its nonprofit partner, Planetera, an organization dedicated to empowering women globally with 43 community tourism enterprises owned or run by female leaders. Bruce is an advocate for women's empowerment and has spoken on this topic around the world. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Chris.
Joining Bruce today, we have Alessandra Alonso, the founder and managing director of Women in Travel. Alessandra is a women's empowerment champion who has worked relentlessly over the last 20 years to support women in the travel and tourism sector. She founded Women in Travel, which is a leading UK social enterprise that partners with organizations to empower women, particularly those from disadvantaged or minority backgrounds, using travel, tourism, and hospitality as a force for good. Welcome, Alessandra.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Joining the panel today, we also have Becki Enright, the founder of Borders of Adventure. Becky's an award-winning writer and the founder of popular travel site Borders of Adventure, as well as a Gadventures wanderer and solo female travel expert. Her work focuses on changing perceptions about misunderstood aspects of destinations, and her writing combines storytelling with insights into social, historical, political, and economic factors that shape the country or place in relation to tourism. Welcome, Becky.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And last but certainly not least, we have Meenu Vadera, our founder of Azad Foundation and Women with Wheels. Meenu is a feminist social entrepreneur working in India towards sustainable livelihoods with dignity for resource poor in non-traditional fields such as driving. Women with Wheels has helped 2,000 plus women gain employment and provided more than 1.5 million safe rides to women. In 2018, she was the recipient of the International Inspiration Accolade and the IBM Every Woman in Travel Awards. Welcome, Meenu. Wonderful. And on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Bruce to kick off this incredibly important conversation. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. And if you ladies can remember, that if you have your mutes on you can turn them off now. Great to see you all, and it's great to be here. And thank you for the this audience that's attended today. This is a very Well, it's on the heels of a big day. I guess Women's Day, International Women's Day is on March 8th. And so just approaching that day, this is a very interesting conversation to have about women in travel. So thank you all for joining. And thank you especially for our panelists for joining us at various hours of the evening or morning, depending on where you are. First of all, let's just get right into it. This year's International Women's Day, the theme is Choose to Challenge. What is the area of tourism you'd like to challenge the industry to improve for women? And we'll start with you, Alessandra.
Sure, thank you for the question, Bruce. So from our viewpoint, the area where we would most like to challenge our industry is definitely talent and how the industry attract and retain female talent. I think that most of us know that there is a limited amount of women in managerial and senior positions. So that's from a corporate viewpoint, the number continues to be quite low. And when we look at minority ethnics, even more so. But also very important, we are looking at marginalized, perhaps vulnerable women who are actually nowhere near that table, don't even know about the opportunity offered by travel and tourism. And these are also the kind of women that we work with. Now, if you think about the fact that women have left the industry in droves over the last year, and most of the women that we supported have actually left the industry and found job elsewhere. And if you combine this with some of the sort of challenges from a UK and European perspective, certainly Brexit is a major one, there is going to be certainly a scarcity of talent available. So the industry needs to think about how do we look at talent differently? How do we fish from the bigger pond of talent from women who are perhaps invisible to us, but we know are out there? And that's really what we want to tell the industry. Challenge yourself and look at the broader pool if you can, because there are a lot of women out there who are keen to work, but don't know where to start. And we can support that.
That's an excellent point. And that's a very, very complicated subject, actually, in terms of employment in the industry. And it's not just employment, is what you're saying, it's leadership roles and having the opportunities and how you recruit. We have discussions about that all the time at Gadventures. Becky, what about you? From your perspective, choose to challenge. What is one of the areas of tourism you'd like to challenge the industry to improve for women?
Well, it kind of plays into what Alessandra was saying, but it's very much to change the stereotypes of particular tourism job profiles and to put more women in leadership roles and put them up front. One example is I trek a lot, but I've never had a female trekking guide. So there's places where you have porters and guides, but they're traditionally jobs that are given to the men of the community. So I'd kind of like to see that ratio change and that opportunity to train women in roles that are traditionally dominated by men. Like, how do we attract that talent? As Alessandra said, how do we make sure they're seen and kind of break down this stereotype that it's the man's job or the man's role in the community to only do that.
And Meenu, do you have some thoughts to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Alessandra and Becky have said, but I would also like to add that while tourism is one of the sectors which probably, employs women much more than other sectors, to choose to challenge gender norms and in particular the unpaid care work which women have to manage across the world and everywhere. And I think we need to shine the torch on the fact that men need to, it has to be 50-50 while we want to encourage women to enter the workforce and be part of it, and it's their right as well. But at the same time, women enter the workforce on very unequal terms, and unless and until we talk about unpaid care work, women are able to, take equal responsibility for work at home, and to have a gender-sensitive infrastructure, which means full-time creches, working women hostels, safe and hygienic washrooms, and a whole lot of this there needs to be investment in all of this to encourage women to join the workforce.
Excellent points, Meenu. Meenu, I'm going to stay with you. To ask you what the last I'm obviously very close to your project personally, and through Gadventures and Planetara. What has the past 12 months been like for the women at your project? Maybe you can just tell everyone a quick overview about what your team does and how they've pivoted to apply their skills in different ways during this difficult time for travel.
Yeah, sure, Bruce. Thanks. And we love Gadventures as well. It's like an extended family to us. Just to say a little bit about Sakha. So Sakha provides safe and reliable transport options for women, by women. And in doing that, we provide livelihoods with dignity, remunerative livelihoods with dignity to women who are disadvantaged, the women, Alessandra, you were talking about earlier, who are invisible in the mainstream of society. And women drivers with Sakha they're not just women who have learned how to drive, but they are also women who have chosen to empower themselves and taken on livelihoods where they were denied entry earlier. India is one of the few countries in the world where women's participation in workforce has actually gone down over the last few decades. And of course, last year has been like no other year before. So these women have become principal breadwinners in their family. They have learned to say no to violence in their lives. They are able to exercise control over the money that they earn. And they have done a million different wonderful things with the monies that they have earned. And a large part of Sakha's business revenue came from tourism, and of which Gadventures was a large partner as well. So you can imagine what might have happened last year this time when the world kind of came to a standstill. And so, of course, the first was like, I mean, with the lockdown, there was no traffic, no transport, no travelers, no cabs on the road, and women drivers at home. And we were, of course, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's the new world of Zoom.
Okay. And so, so women drivers were at home and we didn't know there was, the first step was complete shock and paralysis. But then as we got things moving, we did a lot of things to help us turn around in some manner. We, to begin with, gave up our office space, and Azad and Sakha, all of us, contributed to generate liquidity. We started a crowdfunding campaign to make sure, asking people to help women drivers. We used our cabs for COVID relief work, so even during the lockdown, the women cab drivers were busy taking rations and food to communities which were not able to support themselves, including sanitary supplies, etc. So that was, it kept us busy during that time. And for the women who didn't have work, we used this opportunity to help them learn new skills, such as, just brush up on English speaking or, reading at home, etc. We use them also to undertake community service just in their streets and in their areas. So just to ensure that people are engaged and active and they're not sitting at home in despair kind of stuff. Once the lockdown lifted, we did two important things. One is we actually adapted our mission. We used to say Sakha is by women and for women, and that was our identity. We said it is by women and for all people because we needed any business that was there. But I also think it was something which we were naturally reaching a sort of a state where women drivers are now confident to take any customer, so it's not just focused on women only now. It has, it has given us an opportunity to grow in that sense. And the second as well was that we diversified into logistics. So we all know that the e-commerce sector has grown hugely over the last 1 year. So immediately, if people are not moving, things have to move. And so we, the women were taught to drive two-wheelers as well. And we linked up with some of the large e-commerce players. And so with all of this, we are actually quite proud to say that we were able to sustain the livelihoods of every single woman who was with Sakha. We have not had to ask her to leave. And that was very important for us because they have overcome tremendous odds in their lives to be where they are today. And in fact, we were able to support 70 additional jobs over the last year within the e-commerce sector. So it has been tough, and it will be tough for some more time, but that is how it has been for us, just holding each other's hands and trying to kind of swim through this phase.
Excellent, Meenu. That's fantastic feedback from an actual project and a working project that has gone through the last year. Let's just stay on the topic of community projects and benefits of women empowerment. We all know that when women are educated, the whole community benefits. Becky, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll come over to you, Alessandra, on the same question. How have you seen tourism empower women in their communities firsthand? Maybe give some examples.
Well, I see a lot of these on every G trip I take, but one of my most memorable is when I got to stay at the community homestay in Panolti in Nepal. And so the entire homestay setup is run by the women of that village. And so it's not only giving meaningful employment to women that otherwise might not have employment, but it also sort of drives tourism to an area of the country where normally all of the traffic tourism-wise drives into Kathmandu. So it also puts a different area on the map. And then on top of that, with what you get from it as a traveler by interacting with the community, seeing a different place, that some of those tourism dollars then get pushed back into the community, where for education, for training, and for the things that community wants to see develop. Like, they have a say in what they want to see develop in their own community. So that's one of my homestay. I love homestays. And then my most recent, or the last thing I saw was after we went on a safari in the Serengeti. We went to a Maasai village, and then we saw the Clean Cook Stove project. And the issue there is that the open fires and the fuel burning from those fires produces smoke pollution. It's like one of the biggest health issues in the world. And so some tourism income has helped to train over, I think, like 120 women to install more clean stoves in Maasai villages. So it's empowering women to, they're the engineers, they're the heads of this enterprise, and they are the face of changing a community issue.
Excellent. And Alessandra, do you have any experiences or community or examples of tourism empowering women?
Absolutely, and it's very close to home because these are some of the programs that we run. So a large part of what we do is identifying, selecting, and then training women from a highly marginalized background to get to the point where they can really move on with their life by getting employment into travel, tourism, hospitality at large. So what I'm referring to is women who have been sort of experiencing domestic abuse, who might have been victim of modern slavery, sexually trafficked, homeless, so who have experienced some serious challenge in their life. When they are referred to us by our partners charities, they are generally sort of ready to move on, but they lack the confidence, they lack the networking skills, they lack access to the opportunity. So we then give them the training that helps them boost their confidence and also put them in touch with the employers in travel and tourism. Now, of course, last year has been sort of very sui generis in that we haven't had the opportunity to get women into travel and tourist job. And in fact, we have supported women coming out of travel and tourist job and moving away, but we expect the opportunity to start again very soon. And so because travel and tourism has this fantastic ability of sort of very low barriers to entry for women, even if some of those women are not necessarily highly qualified, some are and some aren't, they have an opportunity to take the first step into work. And for us, economic empowerment is the beginning of everything, because when a woman earns, then the kids get educated, the extended family eats, and the whole community is much better off.
Excellent. Alessandra, I'm going to stay with you and just go back to the industry where, within the travel industry, today, women represent a large part of the workforce. And even though you mentioned that it's, we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side of this pandemic because so many women are leaving the workforce. What is the most important thing? And by the way, there's a lot of people in the travel industry that's attending today. But what is the most important thing allies can do to help achieve equality in the industry, in the travel industry? That seems like a point that you'd be able to answer best.
Yeah, it's a very important point, because over the last year we've spoken a lot about allyship, and particular women in travel, we are based around 3 pillars, so employability, entrepreneurship, and sort of BAME, meaning that we are really trying to give visibility and to raise the whole question of allyship towards the women who are perhaps from minority ethnic, as well as vulnerable, marginalized, or underrepresented. Now, of course, we can all be allies. So you can look at yourself as an ally, as an individual working in the travel and tourism industry. And to that, the first thing that I would say is, well, it's our duty to inform and educate ourselves about, the role of allies. But it's also very important, if we think sort of the typical, if you like, ally as a white middle-class man, sort of to go with the stereotype, then of course it is also very important that as an ally you speak out, you support, you mentor, you sponsor women who are sort of working with you, perhaps for you in an organization. As organization, there is also a lot that we can do, because we can be ally to our workforce, we can be ally to our clients, customer, community, partners. And the kind of things that we can do there is first and foremost look at us internally. I think that the industry needs to think about their own house, and putting our own house in order. And then, if so, when they reflect back into the community, the community will actually believe that they are serious about it. So, if you want to be an ally to your Black and minority ethnic traveler, it's not just about the picture that you put into your brochure onto your website, but it's about, the number and the opportunity and the position and the mentoring of your staff to start with. So I think that there is a lot that the industry can do on both sides. We can do it as individual and we can do it as organization. The other thing to remember is that we are all an ally to someone else. So, as a white woman, I can be an ally to another woman, as, and then as perhaps a Black man, you can be an ally to a Black woman. So we all have a role to play in this. And I think it is undoubted very, very important that the industry take diversity and inclusion and belonging extremely serious, because actually that's where recovery can come from. It can have a huge contribution to recovery if we look at diversity and inclusion as an important issue, because these are the community that are traveling, these are the community that are becoming more affluent, and actually they will be part of our economic recovery.
Okay, Alessandra, I'm just going to go off script here because I see just a really good question being asked by our audience member, and it was relevant to what you were saying before about the travel industry, because I actually want to know the answer to this too. So it's a bit selfish of a bit selfish. And this is from Gary in Canada, from Intonovus is the name of his company. Are women leaving the industry because the jobs have disappeared due to COVID? Will they come back on the other side of the pandemic? Are they leaving because of the jobs have disappeared, or is it other reasons? Maybe you could just add a little more commentary to that.
So this pandemic has caused what has been called a she session. So differently from other sort of economic recession or stagnation that have happened, for example, in the mid-noughties, the most affected have been the women. Why? Because the women, as Meenu said before, tend to have the lower paid and lower level jobs, which have been the most disposable one, if you like, to start with. So indeed, the women have left the industry in droves because of the direct impact from the pandemic. Their jobs have been cut. The issue is that when they are looking for, obviously, women with experience, women who have been working, have had transferable skills and have moved across to other industry. Often those industries offer similar level pay or even better pay of jobs with a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type of approach that some of the travel and tourism and hospitality industry doesn't do by the very nature of the sector. Now, it's going to be quite hard to reattract those women to the sector. So I was having a conversation about this with someone in the industry yesterday, and she said, well, maybe that will really give the opportunity to the industry to take a look at itself and see how we can do things differently and better for women. And certainly the whole concept of flexibility and mobile working has come a long way, because we've all proven that we can work from home and we don't need to be in the office, and and therefore the childcare issues and so on in a way can be alleviated. But I still feel that, yes, the pandemic has affected the industry, and yes, it's going to be hard to find the talent again when we are back.
Those are excellent points. I just want to highlight something that you said there, Alessandra, because I think it's just really important. And for any tour operators or leaders that are listening, on the other side of this pandemic, as operators and tour companies or travel companies, we're all thinking about how different we're going to be and how we rethink. I just think it's so important what you said there, that we take the opportunity to rethink how we introduce women into the other side of this pandemic, knowing the struggles that they've had and the losses that they've had, the losses we've had as an industry of women in the industry. We all have this great opportunity on the other side of the pandemic to rethink our businesses and act like startups again. And it starts with attracting and how you attract, and of people, how you communicate. All of those things are new, you can think about, and you can have them in your conversation, because we're all having those conversations right now about how different we're going to look on the other side. I just want to go over to you, Meenu, very quickly, because we're going back a question. I'm jumping time here a bit. And the question that I asked Alessandra before about women in the industry representing such a majority of the workforce in the travel industry. And I asked her, actually, what is the most important thing allies can do to help achieve equality? So maybe you can just quickly add something from your perspective about allies in equality.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think alliances is the way forward for all of us. And, the more one looks at it, and I think one of the things that COVID has highlighted to all of us is how much of a community we are globally, and how connected we are globally. So I think in terms of allies, how they can help women in the travel sector is in multiple ways. Just to add on to what Alexandra said, apart from ensuring how women come into the workforce in terms of retraining, reskilling, helping them move up through the vertically through their jobs. But also, I think perhaps you've all heard about the shadow pandemic of domestic violence, which has the data already shows it has gone up by more than 3 times in this period. And work from home, actually, home has it has multiple meanings in different contexts. Now, for poor people living in a one room kind of a place, the home became a very threatening environment. So even in that sense, how do we reach, for instance, for us, it was a big challenge. I mean, even having a helpline did not help, because in a one room house, how does a woman get a mobile phone to call for help? So for example, the National Commission for Women in India started a WhatsApp service. At least it's a little more easy. So I'm just trying to say that yes, women have to be brought back into the work sector, on the other side of it. But it almost feels like we have gone a few steps behind in our struggle for gender equality. and the space of home that had been, it's a very contested domain, and what women had fought for and gained a few strides, it will have to be contested again, and they would need to be supported in that process as well. And this is where all the allies come in terms of, whether it is whatever our role and position might be, whether we are travelers, lawyers, doctors, or whoever. Yeah.
And I think, if I may, sorry, Bruce,
Yes, for sure.
absolutely, the domestic abuse has been a shadow pandemic, and we've been talking to UN Women about all of that, and they say 70% increase worldwide, which is absolutely shocking. But also, it's the question of the home chores, as you said, because it is absolutely taken for granted that if you are a woman and you're working from home, the homeschooling and everything else that goes with it, the majority of it, even if you are the chief executive of the organization, I know from talking to people in industry, there is still an expectation that you are picking up much of it. So I think, again, it's about context, and it's about looking at the various level and the pathway, because circumstances are different also culturally and geographically.
Excellent points. That's great sharing there. Becky, I want to come to you, and we're going to talk about traveling just for a minute, because ultimately that's what we want people to do again. We have to get people traveling again and take the opportunity to maybe travel a little better on the other side of this pandemic. 2/3 of our travelers are travelers, female travelers traveling solo. You've traveled a lot, and you've traveled with us quite a fair bit as well. What are some of the reasons group trips appeal to women traveling on their own that you've seen?
I would probably break it down into 3 things. One is that a group tour is often one of the best introductions to solo travel. So if you feel like you don't quite have the confidence to step out on your own, it's a good way to understand how that works, because you get a chance to learn from other people, other travelers on your tour. But you also have the liberty of free time. You do get free time on group trips, so you kind of have a taster for what it's like to, make your own decisions, go and do your own thing with another traveler or two. One of the main reasons I see women opt for group tours is the safety aspect, and not just like limiting frustrations in countries that are deemed to be a bit tricky to traveling, but it could be also places where solo female travel is a little bit riskier, or you have better access to destinations that have some restrictions, or which could be a bit more restrictive to women, and also just as a means to be able to interact in situations in certain cultures that would normally not allow you to usually interact. And if you're with a local guide or with a bigger group, you kind of get that access. So all of those safety aspects are really big draws of choosing a group trip. And then also just the general camaraderie. Like joining a group is a great way to meet like-minded people. And something I always did and have done often is I've traveled with other women that I've met on my tours. So when we've stayed on longer, whether it's one day or a week, I've traveled with the women I've met on those trips, and then we've gone and had our own adventures. So that's my kind of the 3 reasons I would give to choose a tour as a woman.
And I'm just going to stay with you, Becky, for a moment and ask you about maybe you can give some advice on how women can connect with women, because you've kind of touched it there in other countries when they visit to have a more immersive experience. So you've actually mentioned traveling with other women and meeting women, which is another aspect of that. But how can women connect with women in other countries when they visit to have a more immersive experience? Can you give some advice on that?
I normally look for local forums, like whether it's on Facebook or otherwise, because whether it's expats or local people will help you if you have questions with regards to safety, with regards to what to do and see. Couch surfing, so staying with a local woman. I've done that before, where they invite you out and you get to go and meet their friends and interact and have a great time. Gosh, I would say that's the main thing. And also just ask around, like ask friends of friends, you know, do you know someone you can be connected to? That's also a great way. Someone always knows someone, or they normally, you know, in this kind of allyship as well. You know, I have a friend who will look after you. I have a friend who will introduce you to how things are, and you get a taster for the place that you're going to. But definitely it's just about research, forums, and finding connections. So it takes a lot of time, but in the end, it's worth it for what you get when you finally get to the destination.
Excellent. I'm going to move on and ask this question to a broader group, and I'm going to start with you, Alessandra. One of the things, a few years ago, we actually had this big movement within G about women powering the tourism industry and the tourism economy. Outside of the fact that the workforce is heavily female, not necessarily in leadership positions as we've identified, but still the general workforce, the decision-making in tourism is women. Like when you look at the dynamics on any group tours, obviously there's many couples that travel, and then there's we always in group trip travel, there's always more single females, but even in the couple relationship, a mass majority of the decision making in couples and family trips is female. And so so women are driving the decisions to travel and are driving the economy. So that's why I guess it's stunning that they're not in the leadership positions as well, actually creating products for women, because women are just making these decisions. And they, we think it's 3/4 of purchasing decisions, including the booking of travel, is by women. And Alessandra, I'm going to ask you, as we retravel, how can we use the influence of women to make responsible choices?
Yeah, I think, well, picking up on Becky's, the camaraderie aspect of women traveling and the whole sort of joining in and supporting each other, it's a huge aspect. I think that women tend to share in the workplace, they tend to share when they travel, they tend to share in moments of challenges. So we've seen it last year with our mentoring and groups and circle where, immediately women would ask the question, how can I help you? And as well as, how you can help me. And I think that kind of approach is also reflected in the question that you are asking me, Bruce, because women are very much led by purpose, very much led by, meaning and meaningfulness. That, if I think of myself, I set up a social enterprise. Why? Because I'm driven by my mission of women empowerment, and social enterprise, as a sector, is the only sector where women are in, for the majority, in leadership position, compared to normal enterprising and commercial and purely commercial enterprise. So I think that women in driving decision, they are going to ask even more frequently, even more relentlessly, the challenging question to the operator. What are you doing? How are you treating your workforce? How are you dealing with your community? Who are you employing? How are you portraying and working with sort of minority? Are you supporting women who run their own businesses? Are you purchasing, buying from them? And I think that's really the point, is that once women become very loyal to companies that can demonstrate those credentials. So again, that's why diversity is so important, because women who make the majority, as you say, 3/4 of the decision making when it comes to leisure and to travel, and I would say to the household, they can really influence the success or lack of it of your company. So if you are a tour operator, if you're in travel and you're thinking about this, you would certainly want to make sure that when women come to you, they feel comfortable, that all those aspects, all that purpose is clearly shown, demonstrated, and lived by your company.
Excellent. Meenu, I'm going to go to you with that question as well, which is, I'll just, which is as when we, when we retravel, how can we use the influence of women to make more responsible choices when it comes to traveling?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree with what Becky and Alessandra have been saying. And I think, a lot about making, for example, doing the research and finding out about your destinations and keeping yourselves informed, looking at, which destinations offer, more sustainable solutions, etc. A lot of it is already part of what many companies, and including G, has been doing. So I think that we need to do more of that. And for example, if I was to, and I think also as in terms of using this to, if I can say, to sell destinations, like, for example, I know that in case of Gadventures, the fact that there are women drivers in Delhi who will be, travel, who will, that the travelers can expect to be transported by women drivers, is a feature that is an additional attraction in the packages. So in the same, whatever these companies are making, and even extending into, for example, providing, crash facilities, providing safe home facilities to women, all of this could become part of what we market and what we sell, so that people know about it, not from the, people know about it as they are looking and doing their research and are able to then take informed decisions. I think these things have to be considered worth selling and marketing, so that there is a much greater information about this and a much greater public recognition. These are things which make you a responsible business. So completely in agreement with all the ideas that have been shared.
Excellent. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left. The time has gone by so quick, and we always go over with these things. So we're trying to keep within our time limit here. I just want to get to some advice. So these next questions, I'd like all of you to kind of pipe in to give some advice to our viewers today. And just, shorter answers so we can get through more of these. And these questions actually come through our audience, by the way. We took questions in advance, and a lot of the questions were advice about women traveling. I'm going to start with you, Becky, on this one. What types of additional safety precautions should independent female travelers take during international travel? And then I'll come to you, Alessandra and Meenu, if you can just add on to anything if you can.
My main point would be to spend a lot of time researching. So something I personally do if I'm going somewhere, especially that might have a particular reputation or might be trickier to travel in, is really dig deeper on what areas could be off limits, any other cultural aspects where you really have to know what's different and how to act and how to interact. I can go somewhere and then give you a detailed breakdown of, oh, this neighborhood's off limits and this one's okay. And also that gives you more of a push to say, well, I still want to see that part of the destination. So maybe that particular aspect of travel, to be safer, I need to hire a local walking guide. So it can start to drive your planning a bit deeper that way. Like I did that in Cairo, actually. I ended up having a female walking tour guide, which was fantastic, gave me a different perspective into Egypt, because it wasn't just about history, it was also, I could ask her about what it was like to live there and be a woman in Egypt, and also meet a female archaeologist when most of the time you meet the male one. So yeah, plan and take the opportunity to book local experiences to get to the places that you wouldn't normally on your own.
And Alessandra, any thoughts on safety precautions?
I think that preparation is key. I think there are also now, as well as yourself, of course, that there are many sites and many organizations where you can sort of access female-led activities or female-led days, experiences, tours. And there is a proliferation of them, but I want to mention one, for example, it's called Gender Responsible Tourism. And this is a website where the author and the woman who has taken time to build this website has really assembled all women-led experiences. So I think when you go into a destination and you trust another woman and you ask, you know, for suggestion, for advice, and maybe you take activities with other women, instantly there is this bonding and there is this kind of safety net that is built around you, because there is an immediate understanding, because your concern will be her concern in a way, you know, both as traveler and just as a viewpoint of gender. So I think definitely that's a good place to start, as you are doing the preparation, but also as you are at destination.
And Meenu, I'm just going to go to you quickly. And this, again, the question is about additional safety precautions that independent female travelers should take during international travel. Sorry, Meenu, do you hear me?
Yeah, I think I just lost you for a minute. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's true. And you know what the other speakers have said. And I personally think getting guided by the local wisdom has a very high premium onto it, because you know what to do, what not to do. But I also tend to think that it is true, while having women on the other side helps in terms of the connect, but at the same time, personally, I would also like to open it up. And I think, you know, it's not just about being women. I mean, there are men who are very supportive and very feminist in their perspectives. And so I think it's what the company sells and how the company, you know, what are the provisions it has. It could, you know, how there are systems in place to ensure that your safety is taken care of. And of course, in today's context, the safety word itself has also built, has got a new pivot. I mean, we are also looking at safety from infections, you know. So, I mean, my point is just that there need to be very clear systems and policies in place, which are very upfront, out there in public domain, which help women to know how this company or travel, you know, this group is going to take care of my physical safety as well as my safety from COVID going forward.
Excellent. So the last kind of question, again, I'll touch with all of you, and this is kind of introspective, a little deep, and that one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, or for women as they head into the world as travelers. And I'll start with you, Becky.
The first part I would say is, I mean, obviously we were still waiting to be able to travel again, but don't delay it, just do it, because you will never be the same person that you were before travel, but you'll change in a better way. So I think there's a lot of fear of stepping out alone and doing something big, but it will, I would say to my younger self, it will change you in the best possible way. Just get on and do it.
Excellent. And Alessandra?
I think travel is extremely empowering. It's empowering for everyone, and it's particularly empowering for women. And I would say, though, that as we wait to travel again, we can also think about the fact that there might be areas much closer to you that are waiting to be discovered. And I would hope that the last year has given all of us new eyes and new ways to look at travel that include the fact that you don't have to travel far to enjoy the experience of travel. And that is something that you can continue to do even in your local area. It's about your mindset. And hopefully this shift in mindset, and you know, both in terms of gratefulness and in appreciation of what's around you, and the fact that you can still influence the livelihood of many people and many women in your local area, will be something that we take with us, even if, of course, we want to go far as well as, you know, in our local area. That would be my tip.
And Meenu?
Yeah, I would say that, in fact, in today's context, I think I would say add the word should. Like, you know, I almost feel like it's a duty to travel, you know, and so people need to sort of get over the fear and move out and travel. And of course, to begin with, look at domestic opportunities, and the economy has to start, and we all have to play our part in it. And I completely agree that while traveling is very empowering to myself as an individual, and if I'm talking to my younger self, that's absolutely the case. But now I also know that it is so much it can also be so much empowering to the destinations and communities that we are visiting. So it's we have to get over our fear and get out, empower ourselves, and in the process also empower the communities with whom we would be visiting.
Excellent. That is the last question, but I do have one more because it's from the audience and it just came up, but I think it's relevant. It's just to you, Alessandra, because you're the one who kind of just comment on policy a bit and about the travel industry and the loss of female talent, which I just think is a major it's a major issue that that we have to talk about. And as I said, as companies are kind of rethinking how they can be on the other side, it's an opportunity to rethink that. And I hope it's just in everyone's conversation when they're rebuilding their businesses. But Samitra just has a real quick question. I'll just point it out to you, and then we're going to ask Chris to come back. But how do we get policymakers to take the immediacy of talent drain in tourism seriously? Do you have any advice on that?
Well, I would say, and perhaps I won't be very popular with this answer, but to me, one of the things that has come out this year is that, the industry really needs to come out with one voice. And, the industry needs to see itself as one industry, one sector, and be very clear and very sort of confident in putting united message to the policymakers. Unfortunately, this is not always the case. Sometimes there are too many voices, and therefore they bring fragmentation in a way to the sector. Now, we've seen this year that when we can speak with one voice, we can really impact and make the difference. So to me, how do we influence the rainmakers, the policymaker, is by having clarity in our messages and by acting as a united industry.
Excellent. Policy is a great way to end it, wouldn't you say? Kind of boring, but okay. Chris, we need you back. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
you for the time. And we'll just turn to Chris here, Mayor Chris, for some closing notes.
Yeah, I just want to take an opportunity to thank this panel for such an insightful, inspiring conversation. And on that note, we also want to thank all of the folks who have joined us today. Before everyone heads off, we do want to provide an opportunity for people to follow along and continue this conversation. So the first thing we want to call out is that this is the latest in our Retravel live event series, where we address the most pressing topics in travel and together look at how we can solve them so we can retravel the right way. For more information on these events, please visit retravellive.com for more details on our future events as well. In addition to that, we do want to make sure to carve out some time to draw some awareness and raise some awareness for the different initiatives that our panelists are focusing on. So I'm going to kick things off with Alessandra. Alessandra, if anybody wants to follow along the fantastic work you're doing, where can they go and what might they expect to see?
Okay, so our website is womenintravelcic.com, and you can definitely follow up by signing up to our newsletter. We also currently have a little fundraiser going on. And like others, we are trying to support the most vulnerable in our community. So if you feel inspired to support us, our work, and most of all, our beneficiary, then please don't hesitate, because every little helps. And this is at justgiving.com, and it's Women in Travel CIC. So look forward to continuing this conversation, and thank you again for having me today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just for the audience to know, we are putting these links inside of the chat as well. So go ahead and check the chat for links to these websites. Thank you so much, Alessandra.
Thank you.
Meenu, if people want to follow along and learn more about the work you're doing, where can they go?
I would invite you to visit the website of Azad Foundation, which is the NGO partner for Sakha. It's www.azadfoundation.com. Azad works with young women, young men, and adolescents in the community to create a community ecosystem that can support women drivers. And you can know more about our work there. And Azad also has a fundraiser on globalgiving.com. So we would be very happy to receive support, any kind of support from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, we've put that link in the chat. And Becky, if we want to find out more about all of the amazing work you're doing, where can people go?
My website is bordersofadventure.com. A lot of my articles, which have a responsible tourism focus, do mention some of the projects that I mentioned today. I'm Borders of Adventure across all socials, and in the spirit of Women's Day, a shout out to all of my other female wanderers. I'm sure they'll put the link in there. There's quite a few of us all doing great work, and again, traveling with this focus and highlighting these great projects and giving people a voice.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And sincerely, thank you for allowing me to be part of this conversation in some way, shape, or form. I'm going to pass it back to Bruce to wrap things up. But again, thank you to our panel, and thank you to everyone watching today.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all of you. This has been amazing. You know, it's such a great conversation. We didn't have, you know, we just scratched the surface really, because it's such a huge conversation. And I say that, you know, as someone in the travel industry, realizing the power that women have in all aspects of travel. As I said, for us, it's in the decision making even, but also just within, you know, the workforce of the travel industry. And I think that the best thing that we can do is give, you know, advice to people right now as we kind of finally see green shoots of a return to travel, and how this forced pause that we've been, this hibernation that we've been forced into, how we're going to come out of this stronger and better. And one of the things that, you know, we should all be having in our conversations is about equality. If one thing that, you know, that's come out of the last year, you know, out through this pandemic, and Meenu, you mentioned this before, is how connected we are as a planet, and how we need each other to get out of this. By the way, we can't just vaccinate one country, and you know, we're all watching our own countries, but we all have to get out of this together. So it's been such an insightful conversation. As we approach International Women's Day, I just celebrate, you know, all the women that are in the industry, all the women that are part of our projects throughout Planet Terra, that support our business. We as Gadventures, you know, I make a commitment to the industry and all the people that I don't think we have it right either at Gadventures. We work hard to, you know, be more inclusive, and it's a constant conversation, but we still have a lot of work to do as well. But what I can say is that it's always in the discussion. We always talk about it, and even more so now as we have the opportunity to rebuild. You know, it's an exciting opportunity for us in the travel industry. We're all, you know, in startup mode, and we get to think like a startup, but we get to do it with 30 years experience. And with that kind of experience, how could we envision a better world for everybody and be more inclusive? And that's also such a big word. Today, we're focusing just about women as we approach International Women's Day. And, you know, I've been thinking this last week, I want to do an epic post on my Instagram page for International Women's Day. And there's so many, it's so diverse, I haven't been able to narrow it down. But everybody, please recognize this special day. You know, there's so many days, and every day of the year seems to be a day for something these days, and sometimes they're funny and sometimes they're meaningful. And International Women's Day can be such a powerful day. So everyone get out there and say something, be vocal, post something, recognize the day, specifically to travel today. And again, thank you all of you for taking the time out and joining us today, and everyone who joined us to hear these inspiring women talk about travel and women. So thank you very much, and have a great day, evening,
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take
Thank
care.
you, Bruce. And thank you, Alessandra, Becky, Chris.
Nice to meet you all.